Hey, I really hope you're having an awesome day, and I hope that these next few minutes together help you have an awesomer day, help you have a better day connected with the Lord and just thinking about your life. This week, we are talking about one of my favorite sayings, something that I tell the kids in youth group all the time, something that I tell people when I'm in counseling with them, something that I tell myself all the time, and that's what you feed will grow and what you starve will die. What you feed will grow, what you starve will die. And it's funny because in some senses, it's not like that's a profound revelation, but when you begin to apply it to the different areas of your life, it has profound impact all the way across the board. We've talked about the storing your mind that you feed. We've talked about different habits. Today, I want to talk to you about your habit of worship. Worship is something that is all over the Bible. Worship is something we're commanded to do. And what I have noticed is that everyone worships something. Even those who say they don't believe in God, they worship something. We worship something when it just massively occupies our mind. It has our affections. We start putting our actions and desires towards just dwelling on this thing, becoming this thing, pleasing this thing or this person. We are always worshiping something. We are worshiping beings. Like we are beings wired for worship. What you give your heart, time, and energy to, that's going to grow. And what you don't put your heart, time, and energy to, that's going to starve. That's going to diminish. God's word in Romans chapter 12, verse 1 says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Now, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good, acceptable, and perfect. And so one of the things that I really have found remarkable about this passage in Romans 12 is that it says that worship is presenting my body a living sacrifice. Worship is not just singing songs to God. Worship is not just raising your hands in church during worship time. At our church, we will call like the main adult gathering the worship service. And hopefully every week it is a service where we worship. We worship by singing songs to God, by giving our tithes and offerings, by hearing God's word, by praying together. But that is just one aspect of worship. You know, that's 1 hour of the 168 hours a week. What are you doing in the other 167 hours of week? Because what you set your affections on, ultimately you end up worshiping. And so if you are worshiping a person, you know, I've been very guilty of this, especially when I was in high school and middle school. I would get these massive crushes on girls that had no idea because I was too big of a nerd to ever tell them about it. But man, the rental space that they occupied in my mind, essentially I was worshiping them. I know I can give you specific examples of how I was worshiping them. I remember specifically sitting in church service as the sermon's going, and all I can think about is when is the service going to be over so I can get home and get on the phone and call this girl who wasn't even my girlfriend. I just like dreamed that she would be. Because back then you had to go home to get on the phone. You didn't have a phone in your pocket. But I spent the whole church worship service dwelling on talking to this girl afterwards. So what was I worshiping that day? It certainly wasn't Jesus. It was this girl. I've done the same thing with basketball. I've done the same thing with grades and prestige, that I've given them the primary power of my affections, that what my grade is, what people think of me getting this position, of how I do in this sport, letting that be the primary thing that determines my emotions, determines whether I have a good day or not, determines my worth and value. Well, why? Because I'm worshiping those things. And what you feed will grow and what you starve will die. And so if you feed worship of anything other than God, it's a house of cards and it's going to fall. And also, the more you feed the worship of these other things, whether it be sports, whether it be a romantic interest or your pretend romantic interest, or at least you get to pretend in your mind that they're your romantic interests, whether it be prestige or power. Any of those things that you're feeding in worship means that you are actually starving your relationship with God of worship. And then you wonder why you feel disconnected from God. Then you wonder why you don't hear from God. Then you wonder why you have less of a desire for the things of God. It's because what you feed will grow and what you starve will die. And so as we finish out today, just very simply, what are you worshiping? Where are you setting your affections? Where are you setting your hope? What do you put your life towards pleasing? I love a simple definition of worship too. Anything that I do to intentionally please God can be worship. And so throughout this whole day, you're going to have opportunities by your thoughts and by your actions to attempt to please God. And when you seek to please God, that is worship. And as you feed that worship, you will grow in your relationship with God. You will grow in the joy in your life. And all of these other things will start to diminish. So I encourage you, starve the worship of things that are not God. Feed your worship of God and watch your relationship with God and the power of God in your life grow. Because what you feed will grow, what you starve will die. We'll talk to you tomorrow as we wrap up this series.